Chapter 1088. Ye may happily took these precious things to look for the nobles in Ming-Chi. As long as the nobles were not stupid, they would use their connections to present this thing to Fu Xiu in exchange for the world's meritorious services. But who would know that this military defense map was drawn by Shen Miao? If Fu Xiu were to fight against it, one feared that one would not even know how one died. Shen Miao raised her brows. I'm a poisonous woman with a heart of snakes and scorpions. So what? Very good. Xie Jingxing leisurely said, I like poisonous women. Those were the things that I gave to Yi Mei. Afterwards, I made another copy that is exactly the same. Shen Miao said, later I will pass it to you. Ming Qi and the great Liang will eventually go to war. At that time, with this thing, you will be able to know what Ming Qi's plans are, and it would be better to get twice the results with half the effort. She thought about it and added, it is best to give Fu Xiu some sweetness in the beginning and let him think that those things are real. After testing the truth and falsehood, he would definitely increase the manpower that was arranged. At that time, it would be more cost-effective to beat him at his own game. Xie Jingxing smiled. You are quite good at calculating. Where are you leaving? Shen Miao asked. After a moment of silence, Xie Jingxing then said, You know about it? You think that you can hide it for a long time? Shen Miao sighed. Seeing that Xie Jingxing did not speak, she smiled instead and said yes. She poured a cup of tea and handed it to Xie Jingxing. With tea replacing wine, I wish you success. Xie Jingxing was startled for a moment before he took the tea and looked at Shen Miao. If you win, remember to give me a wish when you return. She said, What wish do you want? Xie Jingxing raised his brows, and there was a deep smile in his eyes. Shen Miao thought about it. Oh, at first. I have not thought about it yet. Wait till I have thought about it before telling you. Xie Jingxing snapped his fingers. I also have a wish, and you must satisfy it now. What? He carried Shen Miao on his shoulders and walked to the back. Accompany me to take a bath. Shen Miao, the flowers in Weiyang Palace had withered a lot. The flowers that were dense in the spring and lush in the summer would wither in the autumn, looking especially gloomy. However, the palace maids found some chrysanthemums. Big purple, white, and yellow flowers were already showing signs of blooming. It seemed like they could melt away the loneliness a little. However, autumn was already harsh. How could it be changed by a few pots of flowers? The autumn rain drifted in, and some of it drifted into the house. Tao Gugu closed the window and fiddled with the small stove a few times before quietly retreating. Emperor Yongla reclined on the couch. He was actually very handsome, but his face was usually cold and expressionless, so his handsomeness was overlooked by others. What the people saw was the cold indifference of the emperor and his deep schemes. Without the identity of Emperor Yongla, no one knew what kind of person Xie Qi was. Perhaps there were two exceptions. One was Prince Rui, Xie Yuan, and Empress Xinda was also one of them. The former Empress Dowager Jingxian could also be counted as one, but she had already passed away, so it was useless to talk about her now. Empress Xinda was brewing flower tea. There were flower petals and the first snow that was buried under the tree last year. A spoonful of honey was placed in it, and a small fire was slowly lit. A sweet fragrance was emitted from the small pot. It was accompanied by a stack of osmanthus flower cakes that were just taken out of the imperial kitchen. It was warm and sweet, making one's heart sweet. Empress Xinda picked a cup of tea and handed it to Emperor Yongla. Chapter 1089. Last year, this Xie and Xiushui picked the first snow together. Empress Xinda tasted it herself and smiled. It is very sweet. This year, when it snows in winter, this Xie will go pick it again. If your majesty likes, you can come and see. Emperor Yongla looked at her and was silent for a moment before saying, This winter, Jean is still here and will accompany you. Empress Xinda's hand shook, and a large drop of tea fell onto the back of her hand. She hissed in pain. Emperor Yonglu saw the situation and grabbed a handkerchief from his side. He pulled her hand and wiped it as he scolded. Why are you so careless? But the water did not dry, and instead increased. Empress Xinda cried. Her tears also fell onto the back of her hand. They were warm and seemed to be hotter than the boiling tea. She said, "Your Majesty, why do you say such heart-wrenching words to make this Chia sad?" Emperor Yongli's movements paused and looked at her. "Qing Zhen, ever since this Chia entered the palace, this position of Empress, I have been very sensible. What I know and what I do not know, I am very clear. Whatever your Majesty does, this Chia will not have any complaints. But even at this stage, does your Majesty still want to treat me like this?" Her words were all accusations, but her tone was very calm, as though even if she was full of grievances, she could not get angry at Emperor Yongle. She said, "Your Majesty disdains to coax me, and wants me to stay awake until the last moment. But does your Majesty not know how painful it is to be awake?" Emperor Yongle paused for a long time. After a long time, he picked up the handkerchief again and wiped the tears on the back of Empress Xinda's hand. He said, "Qing Zhen, other than Imperial Mother, you are the only woman that Zhen has let down in this life. You're the only one that can stand by Zhen's side. Zhen also knows the feeling of being awake. Zhen has no other choice." Empress Xinda stared at the flower tea in her cup and said, "Emperor has decided. Zhen has decided. Imperial Mother once said that in the world there are many heroes. Zhen cannot be a hero, but to be able to support the great Liang to this state in my lifetime, I'm already satisfied with the Lu and Yi families." The rest of the journey was up to Xie Yuan. After that, Zhen cannot manage, but he paused before continuing. Zhen still hope that it can be like what Mother Empress said, great Liang prospering, the world clean, the throne of the country lasting for 100 generations. "Qing Zhen," Emperor Yongle sighed, "we do not know when we will fall, nor do we know when we will wake up again. If that day comes, you must accomplish what I have instructed you to do. After that, you can go and live the life you want to live, whether you're sober or confused, as long as you're happy." Empress Xianda lowered her head and stroked the edge of the teacup. After a long while, she looked at Emperor Yongle and a slight smile appeared on her face. She said, "Does your Majesty still remember the scented tea that Xie brewed for your Majesty to drink when we first met?" At that time, Empress Xianda's mother brought her into the palace to see Empress Dowager Jingxian. Empress Dowager Jingxian was originally choosing a wife for Emperor Yongle. That day, there were also some young ladies from the other official families. They were all in the four arts and performed in front of Emperor Yongle, but it was all for that high and mighty position. Yet she sat alone at the corner, smiling quietly and looking at everything indifferently, as if she did not care about all of it. No matter if it was the high and mighty Empress position or the handsome young emperor, she did not pay any attention to them. Empress Dowager Jingxian asked her if she had any talents. At that time, how did Empress Xina answer? She said, "This official daughter is slow-witted and do not have any special skills. It is just that when I am at home, I occasionally brew tea for father and brother. Father and brother feel that it is very good." Chapter 1090. At that time, the other young ladies all had disdainful expressions. Things like brewing tea could be left to the servants. A noble young lady didn't know how to practice some skills and only knew how to brew tea. Did she really think she was a servant? Empress Dowager Jingxian was very satisfied. Afterwards, Empress Dowager Jingxian said to Emperor Yongle, "I think Qingzhen is a good child. Brewing tea depends on her character. She is very steady and has a peaceful nature. She can be with you for a lifetime. Whether it's a big storm or a big wave or a small stream flowing over a long period of time, she will gladly endure it. This is very good, very rare." Emperor Yongle thought of Empress Dowager Jingxian's words and couldn't help but look at Empress Xinda. Empress Xinda was blowing on the flower petals floating on the surface of the teacup. Ever since Empress Xinda entered the palace, it had been so many years. As Empress Dowager Jingxian said, she was a calm person. She never asked much and didn't meddle. She just sat in silence. It was as though she was still the same as before, sitting in the corner with a cup of tea and a slight smile. Even with the passing of time, she didn't change. Empress Xinda detected Emperor Yongli's gaze and smiled. "Your Majesty, let's not think about other things today. Since autumn is here, let's relax for once." Drink tea, play chess, play the zither, and write like before. Is that okay? Okay. Emperor Yong Lu nodded. His answer was straightforward, and there was a slight smile on his usually cold and almost rigid face, which actually surprised Empress Xianda. She reacted and quickly stood up, as though she was afraid Emperor Yong Lu would change his mind. She said, "Then this Chia will go get the box of jade chess pieces that Jingxing sent. After Jingxing was sent here, Your Majesty has only played with this Chia once. It was a waste of a good chess piece." Emperor Yongla laughed. "Let Tao Gugu go get it. I don't know where she is." Empress Xianda said, "This Chia has hidden. Your Majesty, wait for this Chia here." She lifted her skirt and jogged to the back. Empress Xianda had always been quiet and gentle. It was rare for her to be like this. She showed a young girl's beauty that wasn't there usually. Emperor Yong looked at her, and as he looked at her, his gaze became somewhat pained. He frowned and coughed violently twice. He grabbed a handkerchief from his sleeve and covered his mouth. After a long while, he wiped the handkerchief away from his mouth. It was also clean, and nothing could be seen. The handkerchief was pinched in his palm, revealing a bit of captivating red in a crease. It was very eye-catching. He paused and put the handkerchief into his sleeve. Looking at Empress Xianda, who ran out with the chess box, she smiled, as if nothing had happened. The following days were unusually peaceful. It was so peaceful, as if nothing bad had ever happened to him in the long run. It was as if the dust had settled after thousands of battles, and everything was stable and peaceful. Xie Jingxing and Shun Miao were in Longyi these days and would stroll around during the day or play zither and write in the residence. Occasionally, when Xie Jingxing was in the mood, he would pull Gao Yan to practice, and Shun Miao and Luo Ten would go to study other things. During the night, she would discuss with Xie Jingxing about the few military defense maps. Out of the two of them, one was good at attacking and the other was good at defending. When they were calculating, they had their strengths and weaknesses and were very in tune. Xie Jingxing was overbearing and could not stand the method of hanging the enemy to death. But being direct would inevitably have risks. Every time he argued with Shun Miao, he would overbearingly decide to slap the table and stand up. Shun Miao was too lazy to care about him. In the middle of the night, he would sneak back to the bed when there was no one around. When Shun Miao used words to choke him, Xie Jingxing would turn over and press her under his body, using another method to punish her. Chapter 1091. The days passed by slowly, but everyone knew in their hearts that they were only lingering to their heart's content before leaving. Once the war started, separation was inevitable, and those days of separation would have to rely on these lingering memories to fill the gap. In the end, that day still arrived. On a night of rustling autumn rain, Ming-Chi crossed the border between the two countries and launched an attack on the guards at the border. At the other end, the Qin country docked by water and went ashore from the fishing village in the northern part of the Great Liang and wantonly massacred the villagers. Using this as a stronghold, they went deep into the interior and launched an invasion. The war started. Ming-Chi and the Qin country did it secretly or deceive the heavens. But in the end, they did not disappoint the public. They were unable to restrain their temper and slowly plotted, but with great fanfare, it showed that they were very confident. Would the Great Liang fight or not? Naturally, it was to fight. Prince Rui requested for the commander's order, and Emperor Yong Lu personally conferred the title of general and ordered 300,000 troops to lead the army out. This was not only a counterattack against the country that launched the invasion, but also a determination to break the situation and push the wheel of history forward in the long history of the three countries. Heroes vying for supremacy under the heavens. The situation was turbulent. Heroes stood tall, and talented people came forth in large numbers. Since ancient times, heroes were born in troubled times, and it was the same for war. The morale of the Great Liang's commoners did not decrease. Even though they were panicking at first, seeing the imperial family as steady as Mount Tai and seeing the prince going to war in front of them, their hearts were filled with lofty sentiments, and there was no trace of fear. The date of departure was set for tomorrow. Luo Tan looked at Gao Yang. In the days that she was in the Great Liang, she had experienced a lot of things with Shun Yao. There were some misunderstandings with Gao Yang before, but it was resolved later on. Even though Gao Yang loved to tease others, he was not as modest as he looked on the surface, but he treated her well and was considered a good person. Luo Tan originally wanted to follow Gao Yang back to Ming Qi, but previously she secretly followed Shun Miao to the Great Liang. Now that such a long time had passed, and Fu Xiu, he had started to deal with the Shun family. Naturally, he would not let off the Luo family. Luo Tan wanted to advance and retreat together with her family, but Luo Sui's letter told her to stay in Mingqi. Firstly, Luo Tan would not be able to help much after returning, and perhaps she would be implicated, which would not be good. Secondly, Shun Miao wanted to stay in Longyi, and with Luo Tan with her, there would be someone to take care of her. He could not return to Mingqi, and indeed, he could not leave Shun Miao alone in Longyi. Luo Tan could only stay here. He watched as Gao Yang started to organize his things. He put some medical books and medicine into boxes and had people carry them out one by one. Luo Tan sat on the chair, silently watching his every move. When Gao Yang was done cleaning up, he raised his head and saw Luo Tan staring at him without blinking. Feeling baffled, he asked, "Aren't you always noisy? Why are you so quiet today? Are you in a bad mood?" "You are leaving tomorrow," Luo Tan said. "On the road, you must protect the prince well." Gao Yang choked and said, "Me protect him? He's more or less protecting me. You are his subordinate." Luo Tan said awkwardly, "Of course, you should pay more attention to yourself." Gao Yang was startled, but when he heard what she said, he smiled. Luo Tan would bully Gao Yang all the time, and it was true that Gao Yang also loved to bully her. These two people would play around all day, and it was difficult to have a good conversation. Luo Tan's character was careless, and it was hard for her to admonish others about the details. It was already rare that she was able to say a few good words to Gao Yang. Gao Yang approached her and deliberately asked, "Pay more attention." "Pay more attention to what?" Chapter 1092. He was born handsome and usually had a gentle attitude. When he was near, his smile was somewhat mischievous. Luo Tan inexplicably blushed and pushed him away before snappily saying, "What else can I pay attention to?" "Of course, it is to pay attention, not to die." "Don't you feel that it is good if I die?" Gao Yang waved his fan. "This entire Gao residence can be occupied by you. The servants inside will be at your disposal. Gold, silver, and jewelry can be used as you wish, and also those shops and farms." "Wait." Luo Tan felt that he was getting more and more excessive and quickly interrupted his words. "Who cares about your things? Our Luo family does not lack it. Moreover, do you think that I'm a fool? These are your Gao family's things, and what does it have to do with me? If you die, how can these things belong to me? You must be crazy." Gao Yang said, "What does it have to do with you? You do not know?" "Know what?" Luo Tan was puzzled and probed. "Could it be that my father gave it to you? You are actually my father's people?" She covered her mouth and said in a frightened voice, "My father sent you to monitor me?" Gao Yang, after a long while, he then sighed in resignation and knocked Luo Tan's forehead. "Normally you look quite astute, but how can you be so silly at this moment?" Luo Tan said, "Hey, speak clearly first." Gao Yang suddenly placed a finger on Luo Tan's mouth and made a shu action. Luo Tan was startled and felt that the place that Gao Yang's finger touched was slowly heating up until it gradually burned her face. "What relationship do I have with you? You slowly think about it yourself. Tell me when I return." Gao Yang placed a medical book on Luo Tan's head. "Now, help me tidy up this." Finishing, he turned around and started to tidy up. Luo Tan looked at his back, but unexpectedly, she did not explode in anger. She pursed her lips and actually obediently tidied up. "Is it done or not?" "It's almost done, almost done." "Ouch. Painful." "There is still a little bit left." "Do not be afraid. I will be gentle." Outside the door, Song Yang, Mo Qing, and Jingzhe and Guyu were flushed red to the ears. Jingzhe said, "Ah, I remember that the clothes have not been aired. I will go and dry them first." Guyu quickly said, "I will also help." Songyang also said, "I'll go and dry my blanket too." Mo Qing fiercely nodded. The four of them instantly scattered like birds and beasts. Only Tai Yi, who was squatting on the tree, had a towering figure and was unmoving like a mountain. In the room, Xie Jingxing helplessly held his forehead. Shun Miao finally strung the last rope and patted his hand in satisfaction. Done. Xie Jingxing looked at the string of red ropes on his wrist and felt a headache coming on. Why would he tie up the rope worn by so many women for no reason? But Shun Miao was still supporting her cheeks and said with a smile, "So many. How can it not be broken?" Before he could speak, Shun Miao had already stood up with a bang and sat on his thighs, scaring Xie Jingxing. The wine jars in the room were all empty, and the room was filled with the smell of alcohol. Shun Miao's face was flushed red from drinking and was as beautiful as a flower. It was rare for her to have a sweet smile as she held his face with both hands and kissed his face. Xie Jingxing was already calm. From the time Shun Miao got drunk till now, she had kissed him dozens of times. As long as Shun Miao was drunk, one would see a completely different female. How to say? It was like a lecher who molested a young lady. The dignified Prince Rue had lived for so long and had flirted with countless females intentionally or unintentionally, but there was only one female who flirted with him. Moreover, it was a heartless female who did not admit it after waking up. "This new face is indeed not bad," Shun Miao said, "can be a top courtesan." Xie Jingxing stared at her expressionlessly for a long while before saying, thanking Foreign for the appreciation. Shun Miao was satisfied and said, "Reward you with some money. Take it to buy clothes." She felt around in her sleeves and took out something before throwing it into Xie Jingxing's hands. It was the jade token that Xie Jingxing gave her in Mingqi. Before Xie Jingxing could see it clearly, Shun Miao waved her hands again and again. "No, no, no. I took the wrong one. This was given to me by my husband." She quickly took it back. "Husband?" He raised his eyebrows. "You still remember that you have a husband?" Shun Miao looked at him, recognize. "My husband is better looking than you, Xie Jingxing, but he's going to go to war." She buried her head on Xie Jingxing's shoulder and found a comfortable position to nestle up. She yawned and seemed to be somewhat sleepy as she said in a daze. "So I am drunk so that when he leaves, I will not be able to see him if I am still drunk and do not wake up. Why don't I want to see him?" Xie Jingxing frowned. Her voice gradually weakened. "Because I do not want him to be entangled in love. But if I see him leave, I will be reluctant." Speaking till the end, her breathing was even and long as she really fell into a deep sleep. Xie Jingxing found it somewhat funny, but at the end he gradually put away his smile. He lowered his head to look at the sleeping female in his arms and paused before softly saying, "Actually, you can be more willful." Shun Miao did not answer his words. He carried Shun Miao and placed her on the bed and covered her with a blanket. He then stretched out his hand to hold her hand and sat by the bed. He did not do anything and only looked at her sleeping face as if he was satisfied with this. In the latter half of the night, Tai Yi knocked on the door. "Master, we can set off." He paused for a moment before leaning over and kissing the female's forehead. Then he strode out the door. After the door was closed, Shun Miao, who was on the bed, slowly opened her eyes. Reluctant to part. Reluctant to see him leave with a clear mind, but also reluctant to miss him like this. Parting was something that made one sad and reluctant to part with. To let him leave without any burden and then return like a hero. Footsteps sounded outside the door, light and steady. There were other people, but it seemed that no matter how one looked at it, one would be able to distinguish the one they wanted to listen to. The footsteps paused slightly when they passed by the room, and then gradually faded away. The long night was about to pass, and the sky was bright, and a new day was about to arrive. She did not know how long she slept on the bed before she sat up. After waiting for a long time, Jingzhi came in with a basin of water. Seeing her sitting on the bed in deep thoughts, she said in surprise, "Foreign is awake?" She answered, "I need to make a trip to the palace." Chapter 1093. Xie Jingxing had only traveled for a short 10 over days, but the days seemed to pass much slower than when he was here. It was clearly the original residence of Prince Rue, but no matter how one looked at it, something was not right. The MOU army left some guards in the residence of Prince Rue to protect the safety of the residents. Tai Yi followed Xie Jingxing and left together. There was also Gao Yang. Ji Foreign did not intend to let Ji Yushu go. After all, the Ji family only had this one seedling, who knew that Ji Yushu had a free and easy temperament and left with a letter before mixing into the army. When Ji Foreign found out and wanted to chase after him, she was stopped by Ji Darren. Ji Darren said, Ji Yushu is always reckless and ignorant. It is good to let him sharpen his will. Thus in Longyi City, almost all the people who had a good relationship with Shan Miao seemed to have left in one night. After Gao Yang left, the Gao family sent his junior brother to treat Yi Hongguang. Yi Hongguang still did not wake up and kept sleeping soundly. Luo Tan also seemed to have grown up a lot in one day and no longer went out to play with cats and dogs or walk the streets. Occasionally, she would stop and be concerned about the situation at Ming Qi's side. In the beginning, Luo Tan was tangled with the battle between the Great Liang and Ming Qi. Thus, Shun Miao told her about all the things that happened in Ming Qi, including Fu Xiu Yi, Emperor Wen Hui, and even the suppression of the Luo and Shin family. The more she heard, the more silent Luo Tan became, and in the end, she did not say anything. Shun Miao also did not go and persuade her. There were some things that one would slowly think clearly, and it was only a matter of time. The days were much calmer, and the commoners in Longyi City did not have any signs of panic. Perhaps it was because they had confidence in their soldiers, or perhaps it was because they were used to singing and dancing for many years that they did not have much of an impression of war. Thus they did not feel any fear. Shun Miao and those noble Furins in Long Yi had a very good relationship. Naturally, there was a result of her deliberately winning them over, and those Furins were also very smart. The biggest threat to the imperial family, the Lu and Yi family, had disappeared from the world, and now the Great Liang was ruled by the imperial family, and the residence of Prince Rue was also a relative of the imperial family. Shin Miao was also on good terms with Empress Xianda, so naturally they would rush to please her. Speaking of Empress Xianda, Shun Miao often visited her in the palace these days. Shun Miao liked to talk to Empress Xianda, as Empress Xianda was a talented female. In Shun Miao's previous life, it was because she was an empress that her horizons were broadened. The two of them talked about the past and present, from anecdotes to the current situation of the world, and their opinions were surprisingly in agreement. Empress Xianda also liked her. Every time they talked about her, time seemed to pass very quickly. On this day, Shun Miao was going out again and planned to enter the palace to see Empress Xianda. The closer it was to autumn, the colder it got. Uncle Tang carried a bowl of sheep milk soup in. Most likely it was because Xie Jingxing had left that Uncle Tang was very idle all day. Other than occasionally being instructed by Shin Miao to handle the matters of the shop, most of the time he had nothing to do. So he thought of a way to prepare some meals, saying, when Master comes back and sees that Madam has lost weight and is haggard, he will definitely blame this old servant. Why don't you let this old servant make some food for Madam? It's good for your health. Jingja said, this goat milk smells so fragrant. If it was another household's goat milk, the soup that is made would be more fragrant and sweet. Uncle Tang said, after Madam eats this bowl, when she goes to the palace, her heart will be warm, and she won't catch a cold on the way. He took another look outside and said, the weather has turned cold these past few days. Shin Miao smiled. Many thanks, Uncle Tang. She picked up the bowl and took a sip. She had only taken a sip when she felt her stomach churning and almost wanted to vomit. She suddenly put down the bowl and covered her mouth as she frowned. Chapter 1094. Gu Yu and Jingja jumped in shock. Uncle Tang quickly asked, what is the matter with Foreign? Shun Miao shook her head. Most likely one caught a cold last night and smelled the sheep milk. This time I cannot eat it, and it is better not to drink it. In this case, Uncle Tang muttered, go back and get the servants to bring some medicine back. Then Foreign should not drink the sheep soup first, Otherwise, it will be uncomfortable. Let the kitchen make some light soup later. Shen Miao nodded her head and grabbed the cloak before speaking to Jingzhe and Guyu. Let's go. Mo Qing and Song Yang had already prepared the horse carriage outside. Both of them did not follow Xie Jingxing to Ming Qi, as Long Yezhen was not without worries. Both of their martial arts were strong, and Shen Miao could use them easily, so they stayed in Long Yi and listened to Shen Miao's instructions. When they entered the palace, Empress Xinda was waiting for her in the Weiyang Palace and smiled. Today you came a little late. There was some trouble before coming out. Shen Miao smiled and asked again, is His Majesty's health better these days? Still not bad. Yesterday, he even strolled with Ben Gong in the garden. But Empress Xinda smiled bitterly. Perhaps he is lying to Ben Gong. Anyway, he always likes to lie to Ben Gong and would not say anything. Shen Miao paused before persuading her. His Majesty is also afraid that you will be worried and hope that your ladyship will not be worried about this as he is thinking of you. Perhaps. Empress Xinda smiled. Let's not talk about these. Ben Gong obtained new tea leaves yesterday, and the kitchen made osmanthus cake. There are records in ancient books that the literati of the previous dynasty would put tea leaves in the osmanthus cake to obtain the fragrance of the tea leaves. Together with the tea, it was called tea food. One felt that it was not bad, and thinking that you were coming today, one would make it in the imperial kitchen, if His Majesty knew about it. One feared that Ben Gong would laugh at Ben Gong, and Ben Gong could only thicken her face to look for you. Your ladyship is really thinking highly of this official's wife. Shen Miao smiled gently. This official's wife is from a military family and is naturally rough and do not know how to do such elegant things. Stop it, Empress Xinda rebuked. In Long Yi, even those scholars and officials who think they are knowledgeable are not as knowledgeable as you. If you are coarse, would it not be ridiculing the entire Long Yi civil officials? She handed the teacup to Shen Miao. Quickly taste it, how about it? Empress Xinda liked to boil tea. She liked to watch the tea leaves boil in the water. The temperature of the water had to be just right, no more, no less. The timing had to be just right. As for the tea leaves, spring water, and honey, they were all knowledge. As the Empress, she did not seem to be impatient with these trivial matters. It seemed that it was because of this that his temperament had been tempered to be so mild. Shen Miao liked to stay together with Empress Xinda because of her peaceful temperament that made one feel that the years were peaceful and long. Shen Miao said, "It is better to obey than to be respectful." She picked up the tea and took a sip. That tea was very fragrant and slightly bitter, but the aftertaste was dry and sweet. Just as Shen Miao was about to speak, she suddenly felt nauseous and her hands trembled and half a cup of tea fell over. She covered her mouth and retched. Empress Xinda was surprised for a moment and quickly took the tea from her hands. Seeing that her expression was not good, she asked, "What is the matter? Is there anything uncomfortable?" Shen Miao felt that the churning in her stomach had calmed down a little before she shook her head. "Nothing. Apologies, your ladyship. Really sorry. Recently, it is most likely that I have caught a cold and keep feeling uncomfortable in my stomach. Today when I went out, it was..." Her voice suddenly stopped, and an incredulous expression rose on her face. Empress Xinda did not understand at first, but after seeing Shen Miao's expression, she seemed to have thought of something and said in shock, "Could it be that you are?" Chapter 1095. Shen Miao clenched her fists before quickly releasing them. This official's wife also do not know. Quickly call the imperial physician over. Empress Xinda stood up excitedly and called Tao Gugu. Take Ben Gong's invitation and call the imperial physician over. Shen Miao looked at the tea on the table and her heart was shocked. She had been pregnant before, so she wasn't sure if she was pregnant or not. It was because Xie Jingxing had only left for a dozen days, and her period was not accurate. Thus she did not put it in her heart. She only thought that she had caught a cold. Who knew? Now that she thought about it, she felt that recently her appetite had become strange. But she still could not make up her mind. Shen Miao's heart was also somewhat excited. The word child was too far away for her. She was somewhat afraid that when the child came to this world, They would have to face the sufferings, joys, and sorrows of others, and she was not omnipotent and could not protect them flawlessly. On the other hand, she was very eager for the arrival of the child. If it came, it would be the best gift that heaven had given her in this lifetime. The imperial physician quickly rushed over, and Empress Sienda appeared to be more excited than Shen Miao, letting the imperial physician immediately take Shen Miao's pulse. The white-bearded imperial physician took Shen Miao's pulse, and after pondering for a long time, he stood up and bowed to Shen Miao before bowing to Empress Sienda, and said with a smile, "Congratulations, Qin Wangfei. The pulse is like pearls, and it is the pulse of pregnancy. One fear that Qin Wangfei has been pregnant for more than a month, and the Qinhuang residents will have another child." Shen Miao was still somewhat in disbelief as she asked, "Really?" It was rare for Empress Sienda to see Shen Miao in such a daze and laughed out loud. She pretended to be serious and said, "Qin Wangfei is asking you if it is true. If there is a mistake, there will be heavy punishment." The white-bearded imperial physician smiled. This old official does not dare to lie. If Qin Wangfei does not believe, one can invite a few more to take a look. This was originally a joke, but Shen Miao said, "All right, then one will trouble to invite a few more to take a look." The imperial physician was so shocked that he could only stare blankly. Empress Sienda was overjoyed and knew that Shen Miao was not willing to believe and wanted to confirm it again and again. However, when she was pregnant, she also couldn't believe it. Thinking of himself, his eyes darkened, but he quickly regained his composure and said with a smile, "Then let's do as Princess Consort said and invite a few more imperial physicians over." Empress Sienda really took good care of Shen Miao and really invited several imperial physicians to take Shen Miao's pulse. The result of taking her pulse was exactly the same. Shen Miao was indeed pregnant for more than a month. This was really too coincidental. Xie Jingxing had just left, and in less than 10 days, Shen Miao was already pregnant. No matter what, when he was alone, at least he wouldn't feel so lonely. However, it could also be even more lonely. Empress Sienda was overjoyed. Most likely in the entire imperial family, there were only Emperor Yonglu and Xie Jingxing, the two brothers. Emperor Yonglu did not have any sons, and the Xie family did not have any juniors. The one that Shen Miao was carrying was the first of the younger generation in the Xie family. Empress Sienda sent someone to invite Emperor Yonglu over. When Emperor Yonglu heard the news, he was in disbelief. Empress Sienda said with a smile, "Think about it. In the future, there will be a little boy or little girl that will call you Imperial Bobo and call me Imperial Gugu. Isn't it interesting?" "What is interesting?" Emperor Yonglu was still somewhat awkward. He really did not like Shen Miao, and because of Shen Miao, he even had a dispute with Xie Jingxing. But Emperor Yonglu had never changed Xie Jingxing's thoughts and could not do anything to Xie Jingxing. Thus he had an attitude of looking at a femme fatale toward Shen Miao. "You," Empress Sienda looked at him. "This is considered a joyous matter for our imperial family. It would be good if Qin Wangfei can give birth to a few more in the future. The residence of the prince of first rank would be so lively." There was some envy in her eyes. Obviously, Empress Sienda also liked children. Chapter 1096. Anyone could see the envy in Empress Sienda's words. Shen Miao paused, and there was a flash of pain in Emperor Yongli's eyes. After a moment, he spoke, "Pack up your things tonight and move to the palace. This cannot be spread out, and the palace will be able to protect you." Shen Miao was slightly startled. Empress Sienda also quickly said, "Correct. Even though Long Yi City looks peaceful, but at this critical juncture, there cannot be any mistakes. This matter must be kept secret, and outsiders must not know about it. As for Jingxing's side, privately send a message to him. Your Highness the Empress." Shen Miao suddenly spoke. "This official's wife has a request." Empress Sienda said, "Speak. Please hide this matter from your Highness." She said, "Your Highness is currently on a journey, and if he knows about this matter, he will inevitably be worried. If it is used by people with ulterior motives, there will be a loophole. It is better to hide it." Empress Sienda and Emperor Yonglu looked at each other. Empress Sienda said, You are not wrong. But Qin Wang Fei, if you are not willing to tell Jing Xing, you will have to bear the pain and happiness of this child alone. One do not know when Jing Xing will return, and you will have to endure a long period of loneliness. Ben Gong had seen many females, and because of various reasons, they hid the news of pregnancy, but the process was extremely aggrieved. You must be able to bear this aggrieved. This official's wife is not aggrieved. Shun Miao smiled gently, and her hands subconsciously touched her lower abdomen. When she knew that she was pregnant, she felt that there was a little life in her body that was breathing with her. That was a wonderful thing. She said, "If the result is good, even if the process is hard, it is worth it." Good. The one who spoke was Emperor Yongluo. He looked at Shun Miao and said, "Since that is the case, do not tell him." Empress Xianda still wanted to say something, but Shun Miao had already nodded slightly to Emperor Yongluo and said, "Many thanks to your majesty. Since that is the case, then forget it." Empress Xianda sighed. "But from tomorrow onwards, you will move to the palace. Ben Gong will say that you will enter the palace to accompany, so that those Furins will not look for you every now and then and delay your recuperation." This time, Shun Miao did not evade. It was indeed so. She was the only female in the residence of Prince Rui, and even if there were some guard from the MOU army, it was inevitable that there would be some people eyeing her covetously. On the contrary, because of the matter between the Liu and Yi clans, the imperial family's prestige had reached an unprecedented level. It was indeed safer to live in the palace. For the sake of the flesh and blood in her womb, Shun Miao did not mind what she did. When Empress Xianda saw that she agreed, she immediately instructed Tao Gugu to look for a side hall that was closest to the Wei Yang Palace for Shun Miao to stay in. Because of this interruption, it was already night time when they returned. Uncle Tang heaved a sigh of relief when he saw that she was finally back. Luo Oten also returned from outside, and was surprised and happy to know from Jing Zhiguyu that Shun Miao was pregnant. Uncle Tang was so happy that he did not know what to say. Shun Miao told them not to tell Xie Jingxing, as it was the critical juncture of war, and it would not be good for Xie Jingxing to be distracted. Uncle Tang nodded, but he still felt sad in his heart. He said that he was going to burn incense for Empress Xiao and let her know the good news. Luo Tan was very surprised and wanted to touch Shun Miao's lower abdomen, but did not dare to. Finally, she carefully placed her hand on it and felt for a long while before she said dispiritedly, "Why is there no movement? It has only been a month or so. How would there be any movement?" Shun Miao laughed in spite of herself. "But," Luo Tan looked at her, "youngest Biao's sister, are you not going to tell Gufu and Gumu? If they knew about it, they would definitely be very happy." Chapter 1097. Shun Miao thought about it before shaking her head. Now father, mother, and eldest brother are in a confrontation with Fu Xiu Yi. At this time, I am their weakness. If there is an additional child, it would be even more restrictive. Moreover, Xie Jingxing would reach Ming Qi sooner or later and would need to meet up with father and mother. If father and mother know about it, Xie Jingxing would also know about it. Luotan thought for a while and felt that it made sense. She said, "Even though they do not know, I, as a Yumu, know." She softly said, "Even though one do not know if it is a little nephew or niece, but thinking of a little meatball, one would feel like it." Luotan had been somewhat quiet these days. She originally had a lively temperament, which made the people in the residence of Prince Rui somewhat surprised. Now she had finally regained the liveliness of the past. This can be considered as a joyous event these days. Uncle Tang smiled. "It is time to liven up." Someone patted her head. "Almost forgot. One should pay attention to some food. Now that Foreign is recuperating, one must not make any mistakes. Also, those stairs and the corners of the door must be wrapped with cloth." It was a vivid picture of nervousness. Shun Miao laughed in spite of herself. In the previous life, when she was pregnant with Fu Ming and Wan Yu, there was no such treatment. Even Consort Dong Shu only routinely asked if there was anything wrong with her and sent some tonics. If it was not for the Shun family's concern, one feared that Shun Miao herself would be in a mess. Now she was calm, but the people in the residence of Prince Rui were all extremely nervous. She smiled. No need to trouble. Uncle Tang, you should also pack up, because I am pregnant. Her ladyship wants me to enter the palace. Leave some guards in this residence, and leave some people behind. The important people will follow me to the palace. Uncle Tang was surprised for a moment before he seemed to understand Shun Miao's meaning and said, Good, good. This old servant will go and arrange it. Biao, youngest sister, do I also need to go? Luo Tan asked. Naturally one must go, but I do not know the etiquette of the palace. Would it not be good? Luo Tan asked. Shen Miao said, How is it not good? To show a few punches and kicks, and everyone will know that your martial arts are high, and will be wary of me. Thus I will be safer. The safety of me and the child will depend on your protection. Cousin, don't tease me. Luo Tan blushed, but you're right. 2 people is better than 1 person when I'm with you. I'll go with you to the palace. She stood up. I'll go pack up first. After Luo Tan left, Shun Miao stood up. She didn't expect that she would be pregnant at this time, but she felt that everything was destined. Opening the window, the autumn moon was very bright, and it gradually began to form a full moon. In a few days, it would be the Mid-Autumn Festival. It was the Mid-Autumn Festival, but she was separated from her family. No matter if it was Xie Jingxing or Shun Xian, they were all not by her side. This year was destined to be a difficult one, but Shen Miao touched her lower abdomen. Because she had a child, and because she had become a mother, she seemed to be able to appreciate the fullness of the moon. God would not be cruel to a person forever. At least for this moment, God was a good person. He gave Shen Miao a new life, and also gave her a man she loved deeply and a brand new life. The past was in the past, and this was a completely different moonlight. She softly asked the child in her abdomen, You see, you and father are looking at the same moon. Shen Miao moved into the palace. Empress Xianda treated her very well and gave her the side hall beside the Wei Yang Palace. Shen Miao still used her own servants, so it was not inconvenient. Usually, Empress Xianda liked to talk to Shen Miao and boil tea. Luo Tan also followed. Luo Tan had a lively temperament, and Empress Xianda liked her a lot. Chapter 1098. The days passed very peacefully. If there was anything unexpected, it would be Yi Hongguang. Yi Hongguang was also brought into the palace. Because he didn't wake up for a long time, he woke up unexpectedly one day. But when he woke up, his mind was like that of a 3-year-old, and he didn't know anything. The imperial physician had taken a look at him. He was afraid that he had suffered too much shock and was close to going crazy. With that, Emperor Yong couldn't be bothered to care anymore. It wouldn't take much to raise a fool. Yi Hongguang spent all day catching crickets and butterflies in the garden. He was very happy. Sometimes when Shan Miao saw his and Fu Ming's faces, she felt that Yi Hongguang's life was as tragic as Fu Ming's. It was all because they didn't reincarnate into a good family and wasted their lives for nothing. Empress Xianda saw the heavy look in her eyes and thought that she was sad because of Yi Hongguang. She patted Shun Miao's hands and comforted her. No need to be sad. Actually, this might not be a bad thing. Now that the Yi clan was gone, if he was sober and woke up to find out about this, who knew how sad his heart would be? Even if he didn't have any hatred, he would still be in so much pain that he wished he was dead. Moreover, when the emperor did things, the most important thing was to cut the weeds and eliminate the roots, so he would definitely not let him live. Now that he's like this, even though he's a fool, he doesn't have to face those sad things. He can live a carefree life like a child forever. Isn't that great? Emperor Yong had once suspected that Yi Hongguang was pretending to be dumb, but the imperial physician had taken a look and sent people to spy on him. Yi Hongguang was really dumb. Most importantly, he was unable to walk. Because of this injury, his body was getting worse. It was unknown how long he could live and how long he could live. Perhaps Yi Hongguang's misfortune made Emperor Yongle think of himself when he was young. He had also been poisoned when he was young, and he didn't know how long he could live. It was this similar experience that made Emperor Yongle feel pity for Yi Hongguang and spared his life. However, Yi Hongguang was an idiot now. He didn't know that his life was in the hands of the emperor. He had already rolled around in Yama's palace, but he still smiled carefreely every day. However, not everyone in the world could be like Yi Hongguang, who lived like a child and laughed happily. 2 months later, Xie Jingxing reached the borders of Mingqi and started to fight with the Mingqi's army. At the same time, the Luo family army and the Shun family army met at the Hanga Pass, and the Qin army entered the pass. Qin and Qi joined hands and officially confronted the Great Liang army, led by Xie Jingxing. War was always merciless. Once it started, it was not easy to end it. Moreover, the two countries were facing off against one country, so they were evenly matched. Shun Miao would study the military defense map that she had given to Xie Jingxing. In the beginning, she could not see any clues, but gradually, signs began to appear. It was like a chess piece that had a predetermined path and was moving forward step by step according to the path that the other party had planned. Shun Miao knew that if she did not guess wrongly, that military defense map should be in Fu Xiuyi's hands. The battle between Great Liang and Qin Ming. For the time being, no one could see who won and who lost. Xie Jingxing did not sweep away thousands of troops like in his previous lifetime. Admittedly, it was because the Qin and Ming did not join hands, and at that time the Great Liang first attacked the Qin country before destroying the Mingqi. But there was another point that Shun Miao knew. Xie Jingxing had changed his strategy. He was like a shrewd and cunning hunter, luring his prey into his own trap. Catch everything in one net and not like to be entangled. Clean and efficient was indeed the style of the Xie family. Fu Xiu, he was taking the bait. At the same time, Shun Miao was gratified by this. She could not help but admire Yi Mei's methods. Many things had changed, but she was still able to obtain Fu Xiuyi's heart and hand over the military defense map, making Fu Xiu trust her. Chapter 1099. Sure enough, not long after, Xie Jingxing's letter was sent back to the Great Liang. In the letter, there was the situation of Mingqi. Emperor Wen Hui passed away from illness, and the 9th prince, Fu Xiuyi, ascended to the throne. Just as Fu Xiuyi ascended to the throne, he befriended the Qin emperor and obtained the support of the Qin emperor. Both countries launched an attack on the declining Great Liang together. The rest of the princes of Mingqi, including Prince Zhou and Prince Jing, were already detained in prison. With Fu Xiuyi's methods, it was always easy to deal with his own people. The Shun family and the Luo family allied with the other old aristocratic families that were suppressed by Emperor Wen Hui and openly rebelled, and were labeled as rebels in Mingqi, but the commoners did not seem to buy it. The Shun family's reputation had existed for many years, and it was not so easy to tarnish it. Xie Jingxing's people were secretly in contact with the Shun family's people, and not long later, the Shun family would use the name of defecting to form an alliance with Xie Jingxing and officially turn against the Great Liang. At the end of the letter, Xie Jingxing had casually added a few sentences, as if it was a dispensable legend that he had casually added. It was said that there was an imperial family affair that was currently circulating in the Ding capital. A beauty came to the palace. She was the distant niece of an imperial merchant. She was as beautiful as a fairy and was intelligent. The new emperor loved her like a jewel and held her in the palm of his hand. He gave her the name Mei Furen, and in a short period of time, her influence far surpassed the other concubines in the palace. Shun Miao closed the letter and smiled. Luo Tan asked, "Biao Mei, isn't it just a letter? You read it over and over again for half a day and laughed 3 times. Suddenly she looked at the other side. AI, how did the cat climb up? And he climbed so high. Not far away, on a tree in the garden, a black cat was climbing up the tree trunk. The higher it was, the thinner the branch became. It was as if it could not bear the cat's weight, swaying dangerously. The faster one climbs, the higher one climbs, the faster one falls, and the more painful it is." Shun Miao smiled, slowly watch. Another half a year passed. Once a war started, it would not be easy to stop it. This was even more so for a war that involved 3 countries. Today, the flames of war were everywhere. Tomorrow, they would meet on the battlefield. There were wins and losses, retreats and advances. The Qin country and Mingqi were practically cutting off all means of retreat to fight this battle, Thus, the investment was exceptionally high. In comparison, the troops and horses of the Great Liang could even be considered small. But even so, when Ming Qi and Qin country joined hands, they were not able to gain any advantage from the Great Liang. It was like a long seesaw battle. The Great Liang side was wearing it down unhurriedly, but the Qin countries and Ming Qi's pace was gradually disrupted, especially recently. In the previous battles, big and small, Qin Shi had always won, especially at the beginning. They were able to taste the sweetness of victory almost every single time. Although the harvest was not very bountiful, it greatly boosted their morale. The generals and soldiers of Qin and Qi were very proud. Towards the end, Qin and Qi appear to have less and less of an advantage. Although there were victories, they were gradually showing signs of decline, all the way to the 13 capitals of Yuzhou. The 13 capitals of Yuzhou were located at the border of Ming Qi, Qin country, and Great Liang. It had always been the Qin country's territory, and as for why it was the Qin country's territory, one had to trace it back to a very long time ago, even to the beginning of the country. For so many years, the 13 capitals of Yuzhou had been standing steadily at the border. It was not because the Great Liang and Ming Qi did not have any thoughts, but because the 13 capitals of Yuzhou had a complex terrain that was easy to defend and hard to attack. If one wanted to attack, one would have to expend a lot of effort, and if it was not good, one would implicate oneself. This was such a hard bone to chew. Even if one wanted to chew, other than ambition, one must have great courage. Chapter 1100. Xie Jingxing led the Great Liang soldiers and was about to launch an attack on the 13 capitals of Yuzhou. This battle was extremely important and could even be said to be the key to the entire war situation. If Xie Jingxing was able to successfully take down the 13 capitals of Yuzhou, he would be able to end the war in a shorter period of time. For the Ming Qi and the Qin country, it would be exceptionally smooth. On the contrary, if Xie Jingxing was unable to bite this bone, then it would only cause the Great Liang army to suffer a great loss of strength. Not to mention dealing with the Ming Qi and the Qin country, it would be very difficult to resist the pincer attack of these two countries. Thus, for this war, no matter if it was the Great Liang, the Ming Qi, or the Qin country, all of them had bet 120,000 points, almost gambling with their lives. When Empress Xianda was talking to Shen Miao about this matter, she was still joking with her. After all, the one leading the troops is your husband. How is it that until now, you are not nervous at all? Shen Miao smiled gently. This official's wife naturally believe in your highness. Xie Jingxing was indeed very cunning. Yimei's wrong military defense map was able to successfully reach Fu Xiuyi's hands and was even believed by Fu Xiuyi. This was undoubtedly due to her ability. But Xie Jingxing's role in it was not small. At the beginning of the war, Xie Jingxing had always won and lost neither lightly nor heavily, allowing Fu Xiuyi to gain some sweetness. In fact, those few victories did not give any substantial advantage to the Ming Qi and the Qin country, but it gave others an illusion that the Qin Qi was very powerful. In the long run, Fu Xiuyi would instead trust the things that Yimei sent. Even if the Great Liang won a few more times, in Fu Xiuyi's eyes, it was just a coincidence. But he neglected that the battles that Xie Jingxing lost were all insignificant cities, and even though the cities that he won and defended were few, they were all extremely important. If one looked carefully, it was as if the dots were connected into a line, and there was a faint trend of joining forces. But Fu Xiuyi and the Qin emperor most likely would not notice this point, because in the recent few battles, they had small victories. The morale of the Great Liang army seemed to be gradually declining, and their attacks became more and more fierce, as if they wanted to take down the other party in one go. Thus, Fu Xiuyi placed extra importance on the 13 capitals of Yuzhou. From the current battle situation and the military defense map that Shen Miao drew, Fu Xiuyi seemed to be carefully arranging his own troops according to the map. There was nothing more delightful than this news. The more manpower and financial resources Fu Xiuyi spent on this, the greater the blow he would receive in the end. It was as if Xie Jingxing was trying to abduct a gambling addict. First, he would let him win some money, lose and win, making the gambling addict feel that his luck was not bad and his skills were not bad. Finally, the gambling addict would be determined and lose all of his Shun family's assets. At this time, Xie Jingxing would unhurriedly pull in the net and catch them all in one fell swoop. Naturally, the gambling addict would lose everything and lose everything. Fu Xiu, he had already started to take the bait. As for the Emperor of Qin State, he was more cautious than Fu Xiu Yi. Perhaps he had other arrangements in the 13 capitals of Yuzhou province. However, once Fu Xiu Yi's side was defeated, to Xie Jingxing, it was not important what happened to the Qin country. It was as if he had opened up a gap and broken through them one by one, and the rest would be much easier. Luo Tan stretched out her hand and carefully placed it on Shun Miao's lower abdomen. Unfortunately, the news from the 13 capitals of Yuzhou can only be received by sending letters. But this little fellow grows very fast. Shun Miao lowered her head and looked at her lower abdomen. 8 months of days passed by peacefully like this. It seemed that there was no difference from the past. Even if it was a war, one could face it with a very peaceful attitude. Not only because of the trust towards her loved ones and lover, but also because she understood that there was a little life in her abdomen that was growing together with her. Chapter 1101. Because she had become a mother, she had become braver and stronger. She was able to take responsibility and calm down. Just as she was talking to Empress Xinda, Tao Gugu hurried in from outside. She seemed to be in a hurry, but she could not disguise the joy on her face. She said with a smile, "Congratulations, Nyang Nyang, congratulations, Qin Wang Fei." Just now, news came from the court. The 13 capitals of Yuzhou have sent news that His Highness Qin Wang has won. Really? Empress Xinda immediately stood up. She had always been calm, but at this moment, she was slightly at a loss. Aunt Tao nodded vigorously. Her Majesty is very happy. She is parting the world. Heaven bless us. Luo Tan clasped her hands together and murmured. The 13 capitals of Yuzhou had been conquered and news of victory had arrived. What did that mean? This meant that the war that had lasted for more than half a year would end soon. The soldiers would all be able to return home. On the other hand, this chaotic world would finally be unified. Perhaps the grand ambition of hegemony would come true soon. Shun Miao caressed her lower abdomen, and there was joy in her heart. She knew that Xie Jingxing would be able to do it. That Tao Gugu smiled as she looked at Shun Miao. Prince Consort, do not be anxious. His Highness the Prince of First Rank also let someone send a letter over, and in a while the messenger will send the letter to you. I'm so envious. Empress Xianda teased Shun Miao, not sending a letter to Ben Gong and His Majesty, and just thinking of one's own daughter-in-law. One would bear the title of sibling in vain. Luo Tan also said, that's right. They don't even know how to consider the feelings of others. Don't be disappointed, Miss Luo. Perhaps Aunt Tao was in high spirits after a happy occasion. She continued to speak for the first time. There's also a letter for you. It seems that the young master of the Gao family sent someone to deliver it. Luo Tan was confused. Gao Yang? What kind of message did he send me? Shun Miao and Empress Xianda looked at each other and smiled as they shook their heads. The good news of the 13 capitals of Yuzhou made everyone in Long Yi very happy. Emperor Yongle even held an unprecedented palace banquet that he hadn't held for a long time. It was extraordinarily lively. Shun Miao did not participate in this palace banquet. Firstly, the fact that she was pregnant was not known to the public. She had been living in the palace. Although there had always been speculation outside, Empress Xianda had protected her very well. Later on, people's enthusiasm for it gradually waned, and they were no longer curious. Secondly, it was not suitable for the pregnant Shun Miao to participate in such an occasion like the palace banquet, and if something went wrong midway, it would not be good. Moreover, she wanted to go back early to read Xie Jingxing's home letter. Ever since Xie Jingxing's letters from home were shocking and the situation became tense, there were very few of them. Perhaps it was too troublesome to send a letter. He hadn't written to her in 2 months. Shen Miao opened the letter. There was nothing special in the letter. It was just that he was doing well, and he proudly boasted about his own achievements and criticized Fu Xiaoyi as worthless. It was said that other than Fu Xiaoyi's skill in fighting for the throne, he was really messed up when it came to governing a country. Ming Qi's court was in a mess, and there was no need to worry too much. Then he mentioned Mei Foreign. It was said that Fu Xiaoyi praised Mei Foreign very highly, and there were many people in Ming Qi's court talking about it. Previously, Mei Foreign could only be considered as moving unhindered in the inner palace. But in just a few short months, she was able to freely enter and exit Fu Xiaoyi's imperial study. Fu Xiaoyi seemed to not only see her as a beautiful female, but also as a lucky general. There were even a few victorious battles that were all thanks to Yi Mei. Now that Yi Mei was in the Ming Qi's court, she could get whatever she wanted. Other than Fu Xiaoyi, she did not put anyone else in her eyes. Fu Xiaoyi also indulged her. On one hand, he felt that she was beautiful and intelligent, and on the other hand, it was definitely because of Yi Mei's ability. Chapter 11:02. It was just that when Xie Jingxing said all these, his words were filled with ridicule, simply treating Fu Xiaoyi as a fool. Not only that, he even arrogantly claimed that everything was ready and was only waiting for the other party to walk into the trap. This time after the 13 capitals of Yuzhou won at the Ding capital side. Without needing him to take action, Yi Mei would be tortured to death by Fu Xiaoyi. Fu Xiaoyi's heart was not considered broad, and previously he personally praised Yi Mei as a blessed general in front of the court officials. Now that this blessed general made him suffer a loss in an important battle, how would Fu Xiaoyi let it go? Of course, Xie Jingxing also arranged a little extra fun to create the impression that Yi Mei was a spy of the Great Liang and came to the Ding capital to get close to Fu Xiaoyi to be a chess piece for the Great Liang. Fu Xiaoyi was someone who could not tolerate betrayal, so naturally he would not spare any effort. Looking at Xie Jingxing's handwriting, Shen Miao could almost imagine his lazily biting the pen and gloating expression. She folded the letter, but felt that there was something else in the envelope. She shook it and turned the envelope over. Sure enough, 2 red beans rolled out from the inside. Red beans, the most lovesick. He did not write lovesick words in the letter, but used 2 red beans to prove that he did not forget Shen Miao for even a moment. One really did not know if he was putting on airs or childish. Shen Miao thought about it, and took out the sachet at the side and carefully placed the 2 red beans inside. The 5th letter, she said, Ming Qi, Ding Capital, Imperial Palace. In the gloomy dungeon, there was a thick stench of blood everywhere, and it seemed to be mixed with other smells, making one feel nauseous. In the innermost part of the cell, a naked female was sitting on the ground. Her hands were shackled to the wall, and her feet were submerged in the cold, dirty water. There were some fat rats in the dirty water that would climb up and down her feet from time to time and gnaw on her toes. Some of her toes were bitten until they were badly mangled, and the smell of blood seemed to attract those hungry rats as they gnawed even harder. To see one's own body being gnawed on by rats, not to mention a female, even a male would feel palpitations. However, this woman did not utter a single sound. Only she knew that it was not because she did not want to scream, but because her throat was already hoarse. Screaming would only cause more torment. This woman was none other than Yi Mei. In just a few days, it was as if she had fallen from heaven to hell. Yi Mei had never thought that she would have such a day where she would rather die than live. She did not expect Fu Xiaoyi to be such a heartless person. She only knew that the 13 capitals of Yuzhou had been defeated, but she already felt something was wrong in her heart. But she felt that with her wisdom, it was not necessarily the worst situation, and perhaps she could stabilize Fu Xiaoyi. But Fu Xiaoyi did not give her a chance at all. His heart was so cruel that he directly sent Yi Mei to the dungeon in front of the harem concubines. Then he tortured her until now, forcing her to say what other tasks the Great Liang had assigned to her. Yi Mei still did not know what had happened. She hoped to be able to explain. But this time her appearance was no longer her weapon. Because on the first day she entered the dungeon, Fu Xiaoyi was very disgusted and ordered people to burn her cheeks with a red-hot iron. One of her eyes was even burnt because of this and could not be treated by a doctor in the dungeon, so she was considered blind. Yimei was never afraid. She was not afraid of a desperate environment and was not afraid of how bad the situation was. Even if she was trampled on, she would still be full of vitality and tenacious like weeds. The only thing she was afraid of was her own appearance, because that was her only eternal weapon. Chapter 1103. This weapon was successful in every endeavor. With it, one could survive in a hopeless environment and reverse a bad situation. One could step on the people who trampled on her and live with ease. But once her appearance was destroyed, she would lose the connection to use others and things would become hopeless. She really felt hopeless and even lost her fighting spirit. She felt that no matter how the mouse gnawed on her toes, it would not be able to change anything. She was blind, and her cheeks were scalded. She could imagine how terrifying her current appearance was. She could tempt people to disregard their lives, and there was no lack of such people in the world. Even if one lost one's life, one would still pluck the fresh flowers on the cliff. But now that the fresh flowers had become weeds, and even weeds with scars, who would risk their lives to pluck it? Fu Xiaoyi was really ruthless. He and Yimei were entangled for so many days, and perhaps it was because he understood Yimei's ability to bewitch people that he might as well end it once and for all. He directly destroyed Yimei's appearance so that she would not be able to do anything. Yimei was very hateful. Footsteps came from outside, and it was exceptionally clear in the spacious dungeon. She turned her neck with some effort and used her remaining eye to look outside. Fu Xiaoyi stood outside. He coldly said, "Yimei, Jin will give you one last chance. Say everything that you know out." "What does this official's concubine know?" Yimei asked. She still called herself this official's concubine, as if this would prove that she was still Fu Xiaoyi's favored concubine, and was like a fish in water in the inner palace of Mingqi. Fu Xiaoyi frowned in disgust, as if he was disgusted by her ugly appearance, and turned his head away. "Jin have investigated everything clearly. Since you are a spy of the Great Liang, then you should have a channel to pass messages to them." Yimei laughed out loud. Her laughter was hoarse and no longer had the sweet and pleasant voice of the past, but was very ear-piercing. She also did not know why Fu Xiaoyi said that she was a spy. Chapter 1104. I originally thought that Rui Wangfei was just a little luckier and had a better background. Thus she could accidentally become a Qin Wangfei and live an enviable life. Now it seems that she was smarter than I imagined. Perhaps she had long known that by staying by Your Majesty's side, no matter if she was loyal or not, there would only be one ending, and that is to die a horrible death. Yimei said, "Presumptuous." Fu Xiaoyi said, "I have lost to Your Majesty." Yimei said, "Not long ago Your Majesty was still entangled with me in a loving relationship, but now you can personally make me into this state. Obviously know that one's appearance is precious to me, but make me suffer so much that I wish I was dead. But Your Majesty, let me tell you that you are not any better than me. You push all the blame onto me. Do you think that you will have a good ending?" Fu Xiaoyi's face was livid. Anyone who was cursed like this would not be happy. Not to mention that he already hated Yimei to the bones. For Yimei to anger him at this time, it made him even angrier. You will also not have a good ending. You are not their opponent. Shen Miao did not choose you in the beginning and chose Xie Jingxing, which also proved that in her eyes, you are not even 1% of Xie Jingxing. So you see, I have nothing now and am reduced to a prisoner, but your ending will not be better than mine. You will also be defeated. The 13 capitals of Yuzhou is just the beginning. After that, you will be utterly defeated. This Mingqi's rivers and mountains will eventually be destroyed in your hands. At that time, you will just be a ruler of a subjugated country. I wish you that the army will be defeated like a landslide, and your Fu family's dynasty will finally be in your hands, unable to rise again for 100 generations. Fu Xiaoyi coldly stared at her. Have you finished speaking? Zhen has already given you one last chance. Yimei gave a long sigh of relief and did not speak. Her heart was filled with resentment. She had never hated a person as much as she did today. Fu Xiaoyi had ruined her appearance, and she knew that there was no hope for a comeback, so she might as well pour out all her anger and hatred on her deathbed. But after feeling carefree, she sobered up. She almost forgot what kind of person Fu Xiaoyi was, but it was already too late to regret now. Moreover, Fu Xiaoyi was never a person who would give people a chance to regret. Back then, Peilang did not make him lose anything, so he treated him like this. And because of Yimei, he lost the 13 capitals of Yuzhou. After hearing Yimei's curse, Fu Xiaoyi would definitely not let her die so easily. He said, "Since you care so much about your appearance, I will fulfill your wish." He said to the jailer next to him, "Chop off her limbs and make a beauty bowl. Set up a stage in the east of the city and let thousands of people enjoy it. The spy of the great Liang, since you are so good at singing and dancing, I will bestow upon you to be a plaything for people to entertain you. Have a good life." When he finished this sentence, he turned and strode away, ignoring the heart-wrenching cries that came from behind him. The beauty bowl was a plaything used by the nobles of the previous dynasty for entertainment. He chose beauties to keep in his house. Usually, he would kneel in the corner of the house. If the owner wanted to spit or pour out the wasted tea, he would pinch the beauty's chin and let the beauty swallow it with her small mouth. It was a kind of living spittoon. This was treating people like animals, or even worse than animals, because it was too cruel, and the life of such beauties would not be long. The emperor of the previous dynasty ordered it to be abolished. Now Fu Xiaoyi wanted to take out this method that had been abolished again and used it on Yimei. And the beauty bowl that had its limbs chopped off was the lowest kind of the beauty bowl. It had lost its beauty and was only terrifying. The commoners were afraid of this strange thing and would definitely attack and abuse it. To Yimei, who valued her appearance more than her life, this was a more ruthless torture than killing her. To her, who wholeheartedly wanted to climb up, she was even lower than the commoners that she looked down on, and was not even human. Fu Xiaoyi indeed understood her very well. Chapter 1105. Therefore, when dealing with her, it was like hitting the snake where it hurt, hitting the bull's eye. The once famous Mei Furin, who was respected by everyone in the imperial palace, was gone just like that. Her appearance, abandonment, and disappearance were all too fast, leaving behind only her stunning beauty and a reputation of being a spy of the great Liang. But Fu Xiaoyi? Yimei's curse continued to come true. Even though he pushed the blame to Yimei, the world still looked at him like he was a joke. He had a spy by his side, but even though he was an emperor, he failed to recognize her due to her beauty. In the end, the 13 capitals of Yuzhou were defeated because of her. The reputation of a fatuous ruler had gradually spread among the people. The commoners could not see the process, they only saw the results. Fu Xiaoyi became a complete joke, and what was even worse was that it was as what everyone had expected. Ever since the great Liang obtained the 13 capitals of Yuzhou, the more they fought, the more courageous they became, and frequently won victories. Ming Qi retreated step by step, and it was a tragic sight, as if the previous victory was just an illusion. The strength of the great Liang was so strong that it made one terrified. When it rains, it pours. At this time, the Qin country actually started to walk on the path of self-preservation and seemed to have the intention to admit defeat and surrender to the great Liang. The great Liang's spearhead was now aimed at the Ming Qi country, and Fu Xiaoyi was badly battered every day. It was terrible. The situation of a battle was ever-changing. After Great Liang obtained the 13 capitals of Yuzhou, they used the 13 capitals of Yuzhou as a stronghold and started to counterattack. They did not choose to go against the Qin country, but to take action against Ming Qi first. Sure enough, when the great Liang launched an attack on Ming Qi, the Qin country started to choose to protect themselves and even sent an envoy over to try to negotiate. They were willing to cede territory and pay compensation. The Qin kingdom was already weak in terms of military strength. After such a long period of war, the Qin kingdom's treasury was empty. The taxes were collected from the people, which caused the people's hearts to be in chaos. The state of Qin realized the severity of the situation. Compared to the destruction of the country, ceding land and paying reparations was nothing. It was obviously not a good thing for the Ming Qi that the Qin country chose to throw away their responsibilities at this time. But no matter how hard Fu Xiuyi tried, the state of Qin did not care. This naturally included Xie Jingxing's contribution. To paint a picture to the Qin country, to let the Qin emperor think that the great Liang did not have any extra energy to deal with the Qin country, and only wanted to take down Ming Qi. Xie Jingxing did it flawlessly. He wanted to destroy them one by one. He had perfected this tactic of sowing discord. The great Liang's army quickly fought their way to Ming Qi's Ding capital. Meanwhile, in the Weiyang Palace of Longye, Empress Xianda was letting the palace maids pour wine for the guests. This was a palace banquet, but there were no civil and military officials, no imperial concubines, only Shen Miao, Luo Tan, Emperor Yonglu, and Empress Xianda. Empress Xianda said, "Let's just treat it as a family banquet. It can also be considered a celebration for Jingqian from 1,000 li away." Once Xie Jingxing took over the Ding capital, the Ming Qi would truly be settled. Xie Jingxing naturally would not let go of the Qin country. To cut the grass, one must remove the roots. Once and for all was the best method. Without the support of Ming Qi, the Qin country was like an arrow at the end of its flight. Xie Jingxing had dragged the battle for so long, and now that he was exerting his strength, it was all for this moment. Before long, this long and cruel war would come to an end. At that time, the four seas would be at peace and the world would be at peace. Only then would everyone's wish be fulfilled. Youngest Biao's sister, drink this. Luo Tan placed the plum juice in front of Shen Miao and looked at Shen Miao's lower abdomen. The imperial physician said that there will be childbirth in about another 2 months. One do not know if it is a little nephew or niece. Chapter 1106. Shen Miao's eyes drooped and her lips curled up. Very quiet, most likely a young lady. That may not be the case. Empress Xianda smiled. There are also boys who are quiet and young ladies who are mischievous. But when Jingxing returns and found out that he is a father, one do not know what kind of trouble he would cause. Shen Miao thought of the scene at that time and felt a headache. If Xie Jingxing knew that she had hidden it from him for so long, he would definitely throw a tantrum. But one would take one step at a time. Just as she was speaking, Emperor Yonglu came in from outside. Shen Miao and Emperor Yonglu did not meet much, and most likely Emperor Yonglu did not like her as his attitude was not good every time he saw her. But recently, because of the child in her womb, he had eased up a lot. Perhaps it was because of Empress Xianda's persuasion that he would occasionally get some medicine to nourish the body and send it over. Luo Tan was somewhat afraid of Emperor Yonglu and immediately sat up. The four of them ate at the same table. Luo Tan was somewhat embarrassed. Shen Miao was still all right, and Emperor Yonglu had a cold expression, but only Empress Xianda was the happiest. She said, "This time Jingxing can be considered to have done a great service. When he returns to the court, he must be properly rewarded. Ben Gong will look at it and give the Qin Wang Fei a title. Their residence of the Qin Wang does not lack anything, and it is considered good to have a title." Emperor Yonglu paused and said, and Empress Xianda even asked, "Do you think it is good?" Shen Miao, how could she answer this? If she said, "good," it was obvious that Emperor Yonglu was not happy. If she said, "not good," was this not slapping Empress Xianda's face in public? This emperor and empress were really interesting to give her such a difficult problem. Shen Miao smiled. "Let's wait for His Highness to return before talking about this." Also, Empress Xianda nodded her head. Perhaps he might have other ideas. She then looked at Luo Tan. "This young lady Luo, when Gao Yang returns, Ben Gong will bestow a marriage with you." Luo Tan almost choked on the pastry in her mouth. If it was others, she would have said it back, but the other party was the empress, so she could only look at Shun Miao pitifully. Shun Miao held back her laughter and said, "Your ladyship, these are not urgent. It is better to wait for Gentleman Gao to return before discussing, in case Gentleman Gao has other ideas." When Luo Tan heard Shun Miao speaking up for her, she was relieved, but after listening to Shun Miao's words, she did not feel good. What kind of words were these? It was as if Gao Yang did not look up to her. She was a young lady that was as beautiful as a flower and the daughter of the Shaochun city's Luo family. Wrong. Why was there a need to compare? She didn't have such intentions in the first place. Emperor Yongle looked at Empress Xianda and said in a deep voice, "Eat." Empress Xianda rebuked, "It's a family banquet. Be more casual. Why are you being so serious?" Ever since Xie Jingxing repeatedly sent news of victory, the officials in the court had all settled down and seemed to have seen clearly the young emperor's ambition and means. Even though the Xie family only had these two brothers, they were not easy to deal with. One was good at balancing the court and the commoners, while the other was good at expansion. Because of their reverence for the princess, the imperial court was much quieter. Even the memorials criticizing Emperor Yongle for not having an heir were few and far between. It was rare for Empress Xianda to have such peaceful days, and there were some subtle changes in her relationship with Emperor Yongle. It seemed that the emperor and empress who treated each other with respect had gradually become a pair of ordinary husband and wife. Emperor Yongle was an extremely principled person, and in the past, Empress Xianda would always follow the rules. In this period of time, Empress Xianda would occasionally do some willful actions, and Emperor Yongle also indulged her. Even though he was not sick of it, it was still rare. Chapter 1107. It was said that bystanders were the clearest. Shun Miao felt that Emperor Yongle had feelings for Empress Xianda. It seemed that everything was going in a good direction, and when Xie Jingxing returned, perhaps they would be able to continue to be this happy for a long time. Empress Xianda suddenly thought of something and said, "Tomorrow we're going to dig the 2 jars of snow wine that I buried last year under the plum tree. It should be very fragrant after opening the jars. Your Majesty should come with me and bury this year's. Qin Wang Fei and young Lady Luo should also come along. After digging it out, we will go to Chuihu Pavilion in the evening to admire the lotus flowers and taste the snow wine." Luo Tan was greedy and naturally agreed happily. Shun Miao also nodded her head, but it was Emperor Yongle who was somewhat helpless. Empress Xianda was only interested in brewing tea and wine, and when she was happy, she was like a child. But in the end, he still nodded his head. Seeing this, Empress Xianda was very satisfied and continued to chat with Shun Miao while eating. The second day happened to be a bright sunny day. Summer came early in Longyi. Fortunately, it was the coolest in the morning, so Shun Miao and Luo Tan left early. Shun Miao's body was heavy and could not accompany Empress Xianda to dig personally. Luo Tan was carefree and was afraid that she would break the stones when moving, so Empress Xianda and Tao Gugu were the ones who dug. Emperor Yongle said, "Get up. It is not good to injure your hand." In the past, it was this Xie and Tao Gugu who dug it together. Beads of sweat appeared on Empress Xianda's forehead, but she still said with a smile, "Snow wine. One must personally dig it out for it to be fragrant. In the future, if your Majesty has the heart, then you can personally bury it and dig it out. Then you will know what it tastes like." As she spoke, she and Tao Gugu dug out the other jar. Monarch Yongle suddenly frowned. He paused and pressed his hand against his chest without batting an eyelid. Empress Xianda picked up one of the jars. That jar was small and cute, and it was not difficult to carry. She did not mind the dirt and was not afraid of the mud rubbing on her clothes as she raised it in front of Emperor Yongle like she was presenting a treasure. She pulled out the cork of the wine jar and placed it under Emperor Yongle's nose and asked, "Your Majesty, come and smell. Is it fragrant?" "Very fragrant." Emperor Yongle frowned. Empress Xianda looked at him. Does the emperor feel that it is not good? Otherwise, why would he look like this? Could it be that he buried it badly? She was a little suspicious as she sniffed the aroma of the wine. Emperor Yongle smiled faintly and was about to speak when he suddenly felt his vision go black. He staggered and fell to the ground. Empress Shinda jumped in fright. The small jar of snow wine in her hand fell to the ground with a dong and shattered. The wine mixed with the broken pieces and released a strong fragrance, bitter and lingering. "Quick, call the imperial physician," Shen Miao quickly instructed, but an unknown premonition flashed across her heart. The veil was lowered. The head of the Gao family had finally arrived. This was Gao Yang's grandfather, Gao Zhan. The Gao family had been practicing medicine for generations and was quite famous in Longyi. Among the younger generation of the Gao family, Gao Yang's medical skills were the most outstanding. However, he didn't want to settle down in a corner and wanted to enter the imperial court. Seeing that he was stubborn, the Gao family's head simply expelled him from the Gao family. Empress Dowager Jing Xian initially felt pity for Gao Yang's talent and arranged for him to go to Mingqi. He simply became good friends with Xie Jingxing and assisted him by his side. In the beginning, Emperor Yong Li's poison was personally discovered by Gao Zhan. If it was not for Gao Zhan's brilliant medical skills, Emperor Yong Lu would not have lived for so many years. But the curse of being 35 years old had long passed, and those in the know thought that it was a miracle, but miracles were not that easy to create. Gao Zhan shook his head at Empress Shinda. Empress Shinda's tears fell in a moment. Chapter 1108. Luo Tan did not follow, but Shun Miao was present. Looking at Empress Shinda's tearful appearance, Shun Miao's heart was also very sour. Everyone knew what kind of friendship Empress Shinda had with Emperor Yong Lu. And Emperor Yong Lu was not a heartless emperor. These two people were introverted but affectionate. Once one was lost, it would be a fatal blow to the other. "Teacher," Empress Shinda held back her sobs and said, "His Majesty, how much longer can he hold on?" Gao Zhan took a look inside, sighed deeply, and said, "At most a month. How could it be?" Shun Miao was surprised. His Majesty's illness was accumulated in the early years. In this 1 year, the poison had already invaded his internal organs, and he was relying on his willpower to hold on. One think that His Majesty had suffered a lot of pain, but now he is like an arrow at the end of its flight. Gao Zhan said, "This old one has been with His Majesty's illness since young. His Majesty is a tenacious person and carries too many burdens. Even until now, he is still holding on. If your ladyship has the heart, please advise His Majesty that it is too difficult to walk on, and now he should not suffer too much. All his life, he had been thinking of others, and sometimes he had to be selfish for once." He then bowed solemnly to Empress Shinda. "In these days, ask your ladyship to accompany His Majesty well." Gao Zhan left. Shun Miao wanted to console Empress Shinda, but did not know how to start. When it came to pain, no amount of consolation from others would be of any use. The knife was not on one's body, and one would not feel pain. People always thought that with a few light, comforting words, everything would be resolved, but it was not like this. Empress Shinda forced a smile and said, "You go back first. Bengong is very well." Shun Miao did not say anything and only told her to take good care of her body before retreating. Returning to the room, she could not help but caress her lower abdomen and opened a sachet on the table. The red bean looked clean and complete. There were so many life and death separations in this world. People who were still laughing a moment ago would fall the next moment. Heaven was too cruel and was not willing to give people good times and good luck. One could only rely on oneself. She would protect her lover and her loved ones. Empress Shinda sat in front of the bed. Emperor Yong Lu was already awake. She lowered her head, deep in thought. Her side profile was beautiful and gentle. It was as if time had turned back, and everything was as it was in the beginning. "Qingjin," Emperor Yonglus said. Empress Shinda came back to her senses. She looked at him and said, "Your Majesty is awake. Do you feel uncomfortable anywhere?" "No." Emperor Yongla shook his head. The two of them were silent for a while before Emperor Yonglu spoke. "Qingjin, we don't have much time left." Empress Shinda looked at him and didn't speak. He paused and then continued. "This winter, It seems I won't be able to accompany you to bury the snow brew. Although one jar has been broken, there is still another jar. If your majesty does not mind, let's find a cool day and go to Emerald Lake Pavilion. This concubine is willing to drink with your majesty. However, the prince consort and the others did not have a share. Chuehu Pavilion's summer scenery is very good, and this year's lotuses are blooming very well. Empress Xianda acted as if she did not hear Emperor Yong Li's words and continued to speak. Qingxin, Emperor Yong, cut her off. We cannot accompany you anymore. His face was pale, and he was still as handsome as before. However, he did not have the dominance and coldness of an emperor. He was like a noble young master, but he was very thin, haggard, and very sad. Empress Xianda turned her head away. Emperor Yong could not see her expression. He only heard her voice that seemed to be separated by a layer of mist. It was hazy, but made people's hearts ache. She said, "Your Majesty is always very heartless. You are not willing to lie to this concubine, not even a single word. That's right. It is time to wake up from this beautiful dream." You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.